when Bournemouth are competing with AC Milan for players, there's a little bit of a financial discrepancy in world football. If you haven't been across Fabrizio Romano, I think he's the only one that's really reported it that much. Basically, Zaniolo plays for Roma. Good player, fine player. We're not talking world-beating level, but we're talking pretty solid player. Turned down Bournemouth. Basically, he had a couple of bids flying for him. One came in from AC Milan, and the other one came in from Bournemouth. Now, traditionally, you think, AC Milan would blow Bournemouth out the water. AC Milan have just won the league. They're one of the best clubs to ever play football. They're one of the most notorious clubs in world football. Bournemouth, who are plucky little Bournemouth, huh? No, Bournemouth actually outbid AC Milan. Now, Bournemouth outbid AC Milan. Zaniolo, rightfully, as I should say, turned down Bournemouth. With all due respect to Bournemouth, but you're Bournemouth, know your players. Zaniolo rightfully turned down Bournemouth and is staying. It's the 30th of Jan. This will come out on the 31st. Probably be listened to by most on the 1st. I don't know if he goes. If he goes, he goes. If he doesn't, I don't think he'll go to Bournemouth. But anyway, okay. This got me annoyed, and this goes back to what I said about football, right? I had a long and heated discussion with my uncle today, actually, about this very topic, because he raised great points. He raised perfectly valid points. I think it was a good discussion, and the gist of it was you shouldn't critique Bournemouth for being able to spend £30 million on a player, and AC Milan should not have a divine right to outbid Bournemouth just because of who they are. And I somewhat agree, somewhat disagree. Now, the reason why is because this conversation has kind of transferred into more of the state of football and the finances in football, because how do I describe this actually? Football is split when you, now in my opinion, when you kind of analyze your football club and you analyze how well your football club is being run or stuff like this, etc., right? You have to analyze it off two bases. You have to analyze it off how it's being run as a football club and how it's being run as a business. I give you this. Arsenal, from about 2012 to about 2019, maybe 2017, run as a business perfectly. As a business, absolutely perfectly. They brought in shit tons of revenue. They brought in shit tons of revenue. Their spending was very little. The profit loss margins would be green as far as the eye can see. Running as a business, perfect. Running as a football club, dog shit. And there's a reason why football is very different to every other business in the world. Is because the KPIs that football clubs have is extremely different to the KPIs normal businesses have. And I'll give you an example. What am I using? Canon, right? Canon's my camera, right, that I'm using. Canon 40D Mark II, just if anyone was wondering. If Canon went bust tomorrow, and ceased to exist, went into administration, and this camera broke down tomorrow as well, I'll just go and buy another camera from another brand, right? That's fine. That's all right. But if Chelsea ceased to exist tomorrow, you're not going to see me in a Liverpool top. I'm sorry. You're not going to see me in a United top, or at least you're not going to see me kissing the badge of a United top, right? I'm not going to be a season ticket holder at Liverpool. You're not going to say that. So the brand loyalty for football clubs is the key stakeholder for football clubs is the people, is the supporter base, right? That should be plain and obvious. Because without football, fans can survive without football. Football will not survive without its fans. The Minister for Football, Mark Bosnich, and I quote. So how do I transition? How do I go onto this tangent? But basically, what this is, in essence, is trying to mean is football basically what the crux of that meant is football is a different business model to literally every other business. Owning a football club is a different business model to every other business. Now, the reason I say this is because, and the reason why this will work into the argument I'm trying to make in the conversation I'm trying to start, is because when you look at Bournemouth and AC Milan, if you look at their current finances or take away everything that could be any way related to football in the slightest, kit, badge, history, stadium, players, current performance, league table, prize money or pending prize money, take away anything that could possibly be related to football and just take a look at the business, why shouldn't Bournemouth compete with AC Milan? They're two of the same business. They're two football clubs. However, that's not how football works, because in an ideal world, and at least that's what I've thought, at least, England, the top divisions around Europe, for the most part, are on a relatively level playing field, especially in the top 5 leagues. If I asked you the question, are the Premier League, Ligue 1, Serie A, Bundesliga, and La Liga on a level playing field, you would probably give me some form of answer that I could summarize as to, yes, they are on a level playing field. Or I could at least push you down the road and tell you that you are, right? Gaslighting 101. Not really, but you know what I mean, right? However, if you say that, how can 18th place Bournemouth, who finished 22nd last season in England, if you want to speak about the whole 92 clubs, they finished 22nd, compete with a club that finished first in Italy? How can you do that? How is that justifiable? From a purely football integrity standpoint, that should not be a thing. How can a club that finished 22nd last year in England compete financially with a club that finished first in Italy last season? From a purely football standpoint, that is absolutely ridiculous. The integrity of the game is slowly diminishing to zero. Slowly diminishing. And we speak about Super League this, Super League that, Florentino Perez that. Is the Premier League not just not a smaller version of a Super League? When they hold a monopoly over prize money, they hold a monopoly over the ability to buy players and transfer money and wage money and all this stuff. Is it not just a glorified Super League? Realistically, if 18th place Bournemouth can compete financially with AC Milan, the Premier League's a Super League. The Premier League is a Super League. It genuinely is. Because the difference in finance and the difference in ability to spend from one competition to what realistically should be a level playing field to another competition is astronomical, and it's absurd. It's ridiculous. You only need to take a look into the prize money, and the prize money, the TV revenue, the sponsorship revenue that clubs in Italy, Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga get in comparison to the Premier League clubs. It is actually ridiculous, ridiculous. That's why we're seeing the best players go to the Premier League, not because the best players either go to the Premier League or they go to PSG, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, or Barcelona. That is it. They're not even going to Juventus anymore. They're not going to Juventus anymore. They're not going to AC Milan or Inter Milan anymore. They're not. Because they can't even financially compete with Barcelona, Real Madrid, and PSG or Bayern Munich. They can't. So we're seeing the best players go to those 4 clubs or 6 clubs in the Premier League. Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, or United. So is this not just a glorified Super League? Is it not just a glorified Super League where the ability for clubs to spend within their league bracket is so much greater than the ability for teams to spend in another league bracket is ridiculous? It's a glorified Super League. It has to be. That is the only kind of conclusion I can come to this. No? Is it not? Someone give me a different point of view if you can in the comments or tweet at me, tweet the podcast. But maybe not glorified Super League. Maybe that's a bit harsh. Maybe it's not a glorified Super League, but money in football now is just beyond the point of any sort of justifying it beyond any form of repair. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It is now where we fucked it for ourselves, right? We fucked it for ourselves because it's only going to go up. It's only going to go up, and you can look at the Premier. You look at the Premier League. Like once the Serie A was the dominant league, and other times it was the Liga, and the French league might pop up, and the Bundesliga, etc. Right? But it's not the same. Like it is ridiculous right now, and let's just compare two clubs, right? Let's just compare two clubs, just any two clubs that are in a relatively similar position. So let's compare who's fifth. I think Freiburg are fifth place in the Bundesliga. Freiburg are fifth place in the Bundesliga. They have signed no one in January. They signed six players. They signed six players in the summer for $4.4 million on a free transfer, $13 million, $6.8 million free transfer. Let's look at who's fifth in the league now. Spurs, is it? Spurs or United? Who is it? Spurs. Spurs, firstly, got Danjuma in. This is how much they spent. $27 million, $22 million, $85 million, $43 million. Free transfer, $28 million. Granted, that was in January. And Bentancur and Kulusevski, $28 million and $15 million each. Sorry? What? How? What sort of level playing field is that? It's ridiculous. It is actually ridiculous. That's why. I mean, the writing was on the wall when Chelsea bought. When Raymond bought Chelsea, yeah, right, fine. But then when City got bought and when Newcastle got bought, it's like, all right, now we're getting to the point where it's ridiculous, right? And this top six of ridiculous spending should be a top seven. Well, will be a top seven with Newcastle, and should be a top seven with someone like an Everton. Should be a top 8 with someone like an Everton, if Everton can get their shit together. That's what it should be, because Everton have spent. Everton are just shit at spending. So, clubs in similar positions to Everton can't spend a thing. Like Bournemouth are 18th place in the Premier League, right? Bournemouth are 18th place in the Premier League. Let's just look at the Bundesliga. Who are 18th place in the Bundesliga? We'll go 16th place, 2 places above the relegation zone. VfL Bochum, right? They're players that they brought in. They brought in 2 players on loan. They brought in 2 players on loan. Another player on loan. They brought Musset from Sheffield United on a free transfer. They brought in another player on a free transfer. Another player on a free transfer. They bought Staphylidis from Hoffenheim for $835k. That's in dollars, by the way, so that's about £500,000. They bought some guy in from Stuttgart, some guy in from Real Valladolid. They bought Jordi Osei-Tutu on a free to try and keep them up and save off relegation. Like, come on, man. Come on. How are we not seeing that this is fucking ridiculous? Like, how can we not see the finances in football is ridiculous? And it's killing the game. It is killing the game. Killing the game. I don't know. I just don't know. I just felt like I needed to rant and rave about that for a bit because it's genuinely a joke. Actually a joke. It is one of the reasons why I'm becoming slowly disenfranchised with football, because modern football, I wouldn't say disenfranchised, because I'll always love the game. Always love the game. And I'll be here forever speaking about it. It's my one true love in life, right? It's a bit sad when you think about it. But yeah, it's like, yeah, bit sad thinking about that properly now, but you know what I mean. Like, I adore the sport and I adore everything about it, right? That's why I'm here. But when every club is the same, when every player is the same, when every stadium is the same, when every kit is the same, when every boot is the same, when every manager is the same, it's like fucking a groundhog day every single time I flick on Optus Sport to watch a game or I flick on beIN Sport to watch a game. Every single time, like that's why leagues like the Scottish Prem are so good to watch. Because yeah, the football might be shit, and I can appreciate the quality of football. Like the quality of football is unworldly good these days. Unworldly good, right? Like the United team, like the '99 United team would definitely wouldn't win the league right now. That's at least I can say. Like the current City team beat the United '99 team at a canter, like really easily, right? But if they play like over 10 times, that City team will win like 7. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, because one-off games. Anyways, you get my point. So the point I was trying to make was, that's why I like watching the Scottish League and the Championship and League One and the FA Cup games between Walsall and Yeovil Town, because yeah, the quality isn't that good, but you get the characters. You get the sense of a community feeling, the community vibe. You get these small, intimate stadiums. That's why I like watching the A-League as well, because you have characters. You have characters in the A-League. Granted, not a lot of them, because 12 Poppy syndrome and that, but we have characters. We have players who want to push the boundaries of what they can say and what they can do, and be characters, be just flamboyant, like be themselves. We have small, intimate stadiums, unless you're playing in a not stadiums like that, where it's small, where it's intimate, where it's intimidating to go to, but also feels like a little bit of a proper stadium vibe that is friendly but intimidating but vibrant, but almost like a fortress type thing. It's like, because you get those old school style of football. Like, I feel like I was born in the wrong era. I think I tweeted about this like ages ago. 90s football seems so much better than actual football these days. Because it's like, yeah, social media is, and I'm fully aware that without social media I would not be doing this, and without social media I wouldn't have any resemblance of a job, if you were to call this that, which it definitely isn't. But yeah, like I'm fully aware of that, right? But I don't know. This kind of has just taken me down this path. Football is a business now. Football, you should judge your football club on its business spending, and you should now judge your football club on 2 criteria instead of 1. One criteria: how good is it as a football club, and the other criteria: how good is it as a business. I use the example of Arsenal. Arsenal between 2010 and 2017, whatever it was, 2018, run as a business perfectly. No loss, unbelievable profit, sweet. But on the football pitch, we're dreadful, we're shocking, we're abysmal, we're terrible. 0 out of 10. So, yeah. Anyway, I feel like that's enough. Yeah, that was a bit of a State of the Union football address. I don't know. The state of football these days. I will always love it though. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll be here every week until I am either contractually obliged to not be, or I'm dead. So I will be here every single week speaking about the game. I will be speaking about it. I'll be tweeting about it. I'll be watching games. I'll be speaking about it with my brother. Speaking about it with my mates. Speaking about it with colleagues. Speaking about it with my mum, with my dad who doesn't really watch football. Speaking about it with my uncle. Speaking about it with my cousins. Speaking about it with everyone. I will always speak about it. Always watch it. It would take a lot for me not to watch some form of football, but we get into an uproar about so many different things. We need to take a look at ourselves and think, what are we becoming? Like, the standard of football is great, but the actual integrity of the game isn't. and you got to look at what you value. Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I was hearing. Obviously, I predicted something related to the Super League in my football world predictions episode. So the year, but I just thought, yeah, if Bournemouth are competing financially with AC Milan, yeah, this league's a Super League. This league is a little bit of a. This league is a little bit of a. I'm going to say glorified Super League. I regret saying glorified Super League because it's not. It's a. It's a kind of like a Super League that's like hiding under a table. That's how I would describe the Premier League. It's going to come out eventually and like surprise everyone. But for those who have seen him under the table for the best part of half an hour, we'll be like, oh, he's right there. And when he comes out, it's not a surprise. But to those oblivious, it's going to come out. It's going to be a surprise, and uproar will ensue, I'm sure. But anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to some.